We are continuing on Daf Chavtet Amud Bet. But it says, Amar Rabbi Tanchum Amar Rav Asi. Right? We previously discussed a memra from Rabbi Tanchum Amar Rav Asi. So the Gemara is going to quote another memra from him. Amar Rabbi Tanchum Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Ta'av, a person makes a mistake, v'lo yizkir Rosh Chodesh ba'avodah, and does not remember, doesn't mention Rosh Chodesh, which means Ya'alev Yavo, in Avodah, in Ritzei. If he forgot to mention it, there chozer l'avodah, he goes back and says it in Ritzei. Nizkar b'hoda'ah, if he remembers only after he said Modim, that he did not say Ya'alev Yavo chozer l'avodah, he goes back and says it, he goes back to Ritzei, and then says Ritzei, and then puts in Ya'alev Yavo. Bisim Shalom, if he got up to Sim Shalom, and he realized that he did not say Ya'alev Yavo, Chozer Lavodah, once again, he goes back to Ritzei, and he puts in Ya'alev Yavo, and continues from that point on. If he Siyem, and if he completed the Amidah, Chozer the Rosh. If he completed, he has to go all the way back to the beginning of the Amidah. Amar Rav Papa Bereder Rav Acha Bar Ada. Rav Papa, the son of Rav Ada Bar Acha, said, Ha the Amaran, this that we said, Siyem Chozer LaRosh, if he finishes up the Amidah, he goes back to the beginning of the Amidah. Lo Amaran, this was not said, Ela, except Sha'akar Raglav, except for a case where he moved his feet back, he took his steps back. About Lo Akar Raglav, Chozer Lavodah, if he did not take his steps back, he goes back to Ritzei. So Rav Papa Breid Rav Acha Bar Ada is explaining here that what does it mean if you finish the Amidah, that you can no longer, you have to go back to the beginning. That is discussing a case where he did not take his steps back. Right? So if he took his steps back, he's finished with the Amidah. If he did not take his steps back, he's still considered like he's praying Amidah, and he does not need to start from the beginning. He goes back to Ritzei. Okay? So now, Amarle Minalach, so asked him, Minalachaha, from where to you this, is literally what it means, which means, how do you know this? How do you know that finishing the Amidah means you took your steps back? So Amar Lahu, he said to them, Me Abba Mari Shmiali, I heard it from my father, my master. V'Abba Mari me Rav, and my father, my master, heard it from Rav. Of course, was the first generation Amorah. Okay. So basically, we said if you forgot to say Ya'alev Yavo, as long as you didn't finish the Amidah, you go back to Ritzei. And then we explained what does it mean finishing the Amidah. That means taking 3 steps back. Right? If you took 3 steps back, you're done. If you didn't take 3 steps back, you can always go back to Ritzei. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, Ha the Amaran Akar Raglav Chozer LaRosh. This that we said, if he takes the steps back, he goes back to the beginning of Amidah. Lo Amaran was not said. Ela she'enu ragil lomar tachanunim achar tfilato. That's only where you don't normally, ragil milashon ragil, regularly, normally, say tachanunim after your tefillah. Aval ragil lomar tachanunim achar tefilato. But if you regularly say tachanunim after your tefillah, chozer la'avodah, you go back to avodah, go back to Ritzei. So Rav Nachman saying over here, this that we said, that if you take your steps back, you go back to Ritzei, right? When do we say that this taking the steps back is what it is? right? That's only where you don't normally say tachanunim after your tefillah. But if you normally say tachanunim after your tefillah, you go back to avodah. Ika da Amri, there are those that say, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Ha da Amaran, this that we said, that if you took your steps back, right, you're done. Ki lo akar raglav chozer la avodah. When you don't take your steps back, you go to Ritzeh. When you don't take your steps back, right, you're still standing, you go back to Ritzeh. Lo Amaran, we did not say this, Ella except Shiragil Lomar Tachanunim Achar Tfilato, where you normally say Tachanunim after your Tfilah. But if you don't normally say Tachanunim after the Tfilah, you go back to the beginning. So, as you see over here on the chart, right? So there are two versions of what Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, right? And you see over here in version 1 that this law, that if he already stepped back, he repeats the Shmoneh Esrei, is only if he does not normally add supplications, tachanunim, after Shmoneh Esrei, right? But if he normally adds tachanunim after Shmoneh Esrei, then it's like he didn't finish, and he goes back to Amidah. Okay? So the first law is, version 2 says, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, this law, that if he did not take his step back, he goes back to Avodah, is only if he normally adds tachanunim after his amidah. And if not, he repeats the amidah. In part 2, we assume that you normally don't say anything before you take your steps back. Right? Meaning it's like this. If you normally say some tachanunim after sim shalom and then take your steps back, then this taking the steps back completes your amidah. But if you don't normally say anything after sim shalom, then the second you are finished with sim shalom, you're done. The first version says, after you take your steps back, if you normally add a tachanunim, then if you did not say those tachanunim, you're not done, and you go to Ritzeh. But if you said those tachanunim, then you are done, and you go back to the beginning of the Amidah.